It's July 25th, 2022. The VRChat team finally made it known to the rest of the community that they decided to add easy anti-cheat to the game, and everyone is reacting back. Review bombing the game. They're doxing the VRChat team. They're spamming the Discord and every other social they can with copy passes and everything. It's an absolute mob out there. I think they're out here too. Everyone who's a volunteer or anything in the VRChat community, stay hidden. So, VRChat announced easy anti-cheat, and the response was heard. Let me put it that way. There was a lot going on. People were review bombing the game on Steam, review bombing on other platforms such as Meta, I didn't want to say Meta, as well as some really not appropriate things. People were spamming nonstop through the Discord server, and some were doxing VRChat team members, and all of this has put a lot of stress on everyone. And let me honestly say, this has been stressful for everyone. Ones on the VRChat team, as well as community volunteers. We've been trying really hard to stay professional, but it's understandable why the community was upset, and let me just say that everyone understands. Now, when it comes to community volunteers, they're not VRChat team members, so we don't get information on game development, we don't get inside information. So let me just say that what I'm going to say is based mainly on speculation, or if it is based on fact, something that a developer has said in the Discord, in a blog post, or on Twitter, I'll differentiate that here. I'll just say if it's speculation or if it's like a known fact. So here's what I think happened. EAC was planned for December of 2021. It was ready to go, other than some Linux support, I think. Linux wasn't working the greatest, but it was pretty much ready to go by December. The VRChat team understands and knows that majority of mods that people use are not malicious and are not meant to harass or do anything negative in the game space. And this is the reason that last year the VRChat team got in communication with some of the developers of these mods, as well as some in the community, to find out what were the most used and generally thought of as important modifications that people use in VRChat. Now, what this led to is the VRChat team pushed off EAC until now. From December until July of this year, they didn't implement it because they wanted to first put out avatar dynamics, OSC support, and updating the IK. Since from their talking with various ones and their feedback, they understood that these were the most widely used features that people got from modified clients. The biggest one being avatar interactions, right? So if you're able to do things like interact with your avatar or other people's avatars, this wasn't possible until avatar dynamics was added earlier this year. As well, they started working on some other things that they heard, such as comfortable menus, a portable mirror, and stuff like that. These were planned for the upcoming update, when we would get a completely redone UI system. We've seen some screenshots of them before in like the developer streams, but these were features that were planned for like down the road in the new UI update, so they weren't really finished yet. As well, having OSC support would allow them to use like outside controllers, so you could have things like face tracking or maybe like haptics and stuff like that. So these were putting it into the base game so that you could do all these things legitimately. The confusion probably came from what was asked, though, because if you just ask a community what is the most used features or something like that, they'll give you what are the most used features. But if you ask them what are the most important features, then you might get a different answer. And that's where the whole thing as far as the disability and security options come from. When it comes to different modified clients, the features used most aren't necessarily the ones for disabilities, but they are the most important. They're the most important, and they should have been added to the game years ago. But from the feedback gathered on just what is the most used, they weren't really on the top of the list. As well, in the VRChat Canny, on the feedback boards, they didn't have a very high number of votes on them as something that should be added to the game. But in my opinion, accessibility options for those who are hard of hearing, or those who can't speak, or those who have limited mobility, it should really go without saying. They should have been added for quite a long time. So this is something that isn't easily overlooked. It's easy to understand why it was missed, but it's something that should have been added a long time ago. And I've been asking for some features, others have been asking for other features. It was a mistake on VRChat's part not to add this beforehand, and I think they realized that. So going forward, what is VRChat doing about all of this? They have shifted all their focus to add all these things to the game. They're starting mainly with the accessibility options, but as well as some other comfort options as well. The reason it used to take a long time before to add features was it would only be a few engineers working on it at a time, as well a lot of them were kind of on the back burner. Since then, the VRChat team has grown a lot. They've hired a lot of new developers as well. The VRChat team is now all focusing on adding these to the game. They're shifting away from other schedules and just working really hard to add features for accessibility and as well as some comfort options that people have been asking for. For those hard of hearing, they're adding things that can localize sounds better. You can choose like a certain range that you want to hear at. As well, they're also adding things like a text-to-speech system and speech bubbles. There's been some rumors of a closed captioning system, but I'm not sure quite how well that's coming along yet. That's more, from what I've heard, has been in sort of a speaking, from what I've heard, that's been more in a discussion phase. There's also options being added to limit some post-processing effects. If you're affected by maybe too much flashing lights or different things like that, I think they're adding effects. I think they're adding things for that. As well, if you're colorblind, they're adding filters for that. When it comes to mobility, some things are really useful as well. Your menu is going to be able to be picked up and moved. As well, you're able to adjust your horizon. So if you're, say, laying back or even in bed, you can readjust your horizons so that now you're standing up in game, even though you're laying down in real life. So there's a lot of work being put into adding these to the game. As well, a lot of features that people have been asking for that aren't necessarily for accessibility are being added as well. More comfortable menus, adding a personal mirror that you can use. There's other things as well as far as performance, like particle limiters, options so that when avatars go too far away from you, they'll turn into a placeholder so it doesn't take up your resources, and a lot of options that modifications have been doing for a long time, but it's nice to have them back in the base game. As well, things like avatar favorites are being increased for everyone, and a lot more is coming. What the VRChat team is doing now is, for at least a while, every workday, they'll update us with an update blog that they've been doing that day. And we have about, I think it's 2 weeks of development schedule already on those blogs, and they'll be updating those from now on to get the major issues sorted out, and then those might turn into weekly updates as a lot of those things kind of slow down as they naturally do. So I think the VRChat team really understands that things were not handled the right way, but I think they're trying as hard as they can to fix what they can. EAC is not something that they can just simply remove. I think for things coming up, it might be absolutely necessary. Quite a while they talked about things like a creator economy, similar to the virtual markets that have been going on in VRChat for years. So things like that, this might be a requirement as well. It might be something that is required for other reasons, maybe for legal reasons or from higher ups. So please don't send them hate. They've dealt with a lot, and it's been a stress for everyone. But yeah, I think the VRChat team knows that there was some problems. They realized that they did mess up this launch, but everyone's trying as hard as they can. I think that development will speed up in some ways, and I do think that VRChat has a good future. So that's just what I wanted to say.